Hello and welcome to another episode of What Does It Mean to Be Human? Podcast on life, meaning, and everything. As always, I'm Ron Saylor, joined by my good mate Ben Gear. How are you today, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks, man. Feels like reality is integrating well, and sort of the next few steps in the next few months are coming clearer. Starting to ramp up business wise and stuff like that. So yeah, putting on a few workshops in the next couple of months. So that'll finish off my year for starting to get back out there, and feels like it's been since the pandemic stuff. It's like I haven't done an in-person embodied workshop in quite a while. So it feels good to kind of go, yeah, let's do a workshop, So sort of looking forward to just getting back out in front of people and chatting about the things I know easily, and go from there and support people to create differences in their own little worlds, and however that looks, So, and you, mate?
Yeah, mate, good. I just want to follow up more on what you're sharing, right, about getting back into the world. The last 2 years has, it's energetically quite dense in my world. It's been, and having to step out of that density. I feel like there's a shift happening in regards to the workshops you're running. If our listeners or people are interested in getting in touch with you to do the workshops, you're going to obviously post it on your timeline and on our podcast timeline and stuff like that to give people a heads up about it.
Yep, happy to. Yeah. So this should be out by the time it launches, because that won't give us much time, but all good. I'm doing a full day workshop on intimacy, polarity, sexuality. What does that look like? What does it mean? Boundaries. It'll have probably a breathe in there somewhere. It'll be sort of a day for that. So that'll be in 5 weeks from now. So this will probably just be out a week before or during that week. So possibly could be the opportunity for people to jump on board if they hear this at that time. But and then there'll be a intimacy for couples, how to deepen intimacy for couples, sort of going into a bit more energetic practices, sort of philosophies behind Tantra and stuff like that, which is a bit of my sort of background and stuff that I've done a lot of work with. There'll be just weekly drop-in Central Coast breathwork sessions, maybe not weekly, but fortnightly, or just as a regular as my creating community up here, and being able to do a sort of cheaper session for people to drop in and get some breath work in and get a feel for it. If they don't want to do a whole one-on-one deep dive into a certain issue, it's a great way to do maintenance and clear some blockages, energy, again, connect with a small group of people. That's going to be sort of an ongoing thing by the looks of it. And that's sort of where I'm at for those type of things. So
I like the idea of the community breath, where people come together and they breathe together, and especially if it's like an introduction to it, or wanting to get a taste for it to see what it's all about before you go deeper into delving one-on-one, maybe going deeper into the transformational breaths and how that can come up for you and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's a great idea. I think it's good that you're doing that, mate. It's good to get that awareness, get people back connected to their hearts, connected to their bodies, opening up, different areas and getting in touch with things, right? Because, it gives you kind of clarity, like you said. It just gives you a bit of more insight into who you are and how you kind of run your ship through the night, so to speak.
Yeah. So I used to sort of run these in Melbourne, and maybe there's a theme per week or whatever. But it's just more about getting people together and having a group breathe and keeping it semi-regular, and we can kind of clear out the stuff and just be on our path, and nice and casual, and nothing too, as groups sync up a certain kind of energy. So whatever you plan doesn't necessarily come into effect, because if there's a collective, there's stuff that's going to be processed as a collective, because there's an underlying theme generally when you get a bunch of people in a room, as much as it may not be obvious. There is a underlying sync up of some sort of theme or some sort of something going on in the reality behind, and it may not be obvious at first, but can become quite transformational in that group setting, where it's maybe less about you and more about the bigger picture of what's happening in your world, and people's world, because it's not a one-on-one. It's not I want to get to the bottom of what's this issue. It's this is hanging out for a bunch of us, and that's weirdly syncs up. And I know that sounds kind of out there, but again, you do enough of these, you see it. It's pretty obvious that some sort of weird syncing happens, and the right people are in the right room at the same time, and there's a theme beyond you as a facilitator trying to create something. It's just being present to what it is, and helping people unpack that as a group, less focused on the story and more focused on the energetics of moving that through.
Yeah, no, totally, mate. It's true to us, right? Like, once you've done enough workshops and sessions, and you can see it, it's even here, for example, like sometimes in clinic, right? You may get a whole day, people, it's just all shoulders, everyone's got a shoulder problem, or you might get a day, everyone's got like a neck or lower back. And it's not like you sit there and plan that that's going to how your day is going to go, or they're the type of clients or people you're going to see. It's just sometimes it's just the way it pans out, and it's like you're saying, it's not about you. It can be just about that collective consciousness for the day, and where, as a therapist, as a practitioner, where do you place yourself when you're not confronted, but when you're given these opportunities based on a particular theme that's coming through the door, right? And it's as us as practitioners, like how do I put myself in a position to be of service, and not making it about my thoughts and my ideas of how I was going to do it, but it's like what's presented with me now, and how am I going to address it, and then how do I take that forward? And a lot of that sort of like we speak about stepping into vulnerability, using intuition, really just trusting the process, and not really sometimes getting out of the way, because sometimes our minds will have ideas of what we think or certain reasons, and then it's just really, you got to sit back and kind of ask the question, do I really need to be forcing this, or should I just go with the process and see what happens?
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to say that, naturally our bodies have an innate ability to heal. And as practitioners, we kind of facilitate that to an extent, but really it's, we kind of hold the space, and then we allow you to jump into that space, right? That's essentially the job for me as a facilitator. Hold the space, and then you jump into it. And then I'll go as far as you want to go. But it's not my job to force you into a space, or force you into healing, because, I don't have the power to heal you as much as you've got the power to heal yourself. And I think that's important to share, because to me, it all comes back to self-empowerment, right? It's like, how do we empower ourselves? Well, we step into what we don't know, and we be vulnerable in that space to see what comes up, and see what we have to, work with, and what we have to process, integrate, and then move on from there. So yeah, man, so that sounds great. I'm actually also thinking of running a workshop, and mine's predominantly going to be on breath work. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. So I've been working with my coach as well, and so I've got a blueprint which I'm currently working on, which we're going to go through next week in our session. And I'll be based in Sydney, and this will be a workshop down in Sydney. And the workshop will kind of focus on breath work, and really a kind of introduction to breath, introduction to different forms of breath work, whether it's transformational, whether it's performance based, or whether it's for personal wellness, right? So And, I'll talk about the science of the breath, and I'll talk about like different apparatus of breathing and the modalities and different techniques and all these kind of things and how it triggers the body and the symptoms and the responses and everything that we kind of like we've done in the past, and some new things as well. So yeah, that's it's interesting that we're kind of both like feeling the energy right now to step back and bring some of this information back to the world and put ourselves back in that position that we enjoy, and sharing ourselves and sharing what we have, our qualities and our experience and our skills, with those around us, and for the benefit of community at the end of the day, right? It's not really for our own benefit. It's really a benefit of coming together as a community, like you say, Ben. And I think that's important. And I think over the last couple of years or so, maybe even longer for some people, community's been a strong part of their lives. And I've definitely learned over the last few years how important it is to have a community, and how important it is to have people that are on the same page, and not even necessarily open to what my thoughts, or like think the same way as I do, but just open. Same page doesn't have to be they agree with everything you say or everything that you believe. No. To me, the same page is someone who's just open and accepts, right? And they don't shut things down based on whatever it is, but you're just open to possibilities. And it's good for me to surround myself with those kind of people, because it keeps me connected, it keeps me accountable, and it keeps me in a place to create. So fun times ahead, guys.
Yeah, and that's definitely where this one's coming from. I know I sort of position myself because a lot of sort of, at least our businesses is about positioning, because there's a million breathwork facilitators and tantra facilitators or whatever out there. There's plenty of, let's not say millions, but yeah, there's plenty of them, and so it's about, if you're in the sort of coaching end, or that kind of just talking through stuff with people, I have my niche areas, and I tend to be targeting high end sort of stuff. I have pretty big ticket sales stuff, so I know that's not always accessible to everybody. So it's about wanting to create something that if you want to just get into my ecosystem, or you creating your one, getting those people familiar with who you are and what you're doing, and stuff like that. Not with a desire to get anywhere specifically, but just to be, like I say, of service to helping things get unstuck, shall we say. So that's very much where that's coming from, at least from my end. So yeah, sounds good.
Okay, let's move on, eh? So what's the topic of today? Like, we were talking off screen and seeing what was coming up, and so I just want to share what's been happening for me over this last week as well, right? And I've been having like old anxiety kind of come up, in this sense of like, this old FOMO, fear of missing out. And I haven't had it for a while, but it's kind of come up in conversations. For example, yesterday, my wife was like, let's go to the beach. It was in the afternoon. And in my head, I was like, oh, the sun's going to set soon and it's going to be cold and all. So I was just building this huge drama in my mind of all these things that are going to go. And we've got to be home soon. And it was like, and then I just noticed, it's like, oh, we better get going. We better get, it's like, and my wife picked it straight away. She's going, you're getting in your old anxious way, right? Whatever wording she used. And it was really good for me, because it kind of put me in my it stopped me in my place, just to go, wow, what's going on here? And I've noticed that's happened a few times in this last week. So I'm not sure if it's something energetic, collective, or whether it's something I'm processing something internal about my own sense of worth, or my own sense of time. There's always something to be done, right? I'm always doing something. It's almost feel like, sometimes I feel like I don't have enough time. And it's like, finding time and having the structure and having like those time slots to do those things. So, something's getting done all the time. So I found that came up for me yesterday, and I was kind of like asking the question, where's this coming from? Like, why am I perceiving myself as short of time when really in reality there is no time, you know? There's nothing that needs to be done. I'm just in the moment. And in the moment, there's like time is just irrelevant because it's all encompassing, right? It's you're just there to enjoy what you're doing. So I was able to let it go. And when I let it go, it just changed everything, right? We had a great time. You know, it was a bit too windy. And for me, it was just, I'm going to lay in the sun. You know, we walked on the beach and, you know, we came back home and there was no rush and like all that stuff sort of left. And the thing that what got me through was I was able to kind of sit back and just ask the question, why? And when I stepped into it, it was like my perception of what was going on, and it was all based in like you know what I'd learned as a kid. Like it was kind of like based in my belief patterns, you know, all my experiences were like you know because you know I was an anxious kid, and I never felt comfortable, and I always felt like you know I couldn't, you know, I had to be you know at the right place at the right time. I always felt like I was chasing my tail. And in that moment, as an adult yesterday, I could feel that coming up. And it was only based in like old experience. That was kind of like a definition for me. Like I was defining that moment based on my experiences that I had cataloged in my subconscious, right? So I was triggered from that and I was responding from that. Whereas my wife was looking as like, we were kind of looking at the same thing. We're both going to the beach and she was relaxed, chilled, and I'm like, oh, there's not enough time. How are we going to get back? I've got to do stuff. And she's had to do just as much as I did. So when I was able, once she said that to me, I was able to stop. I could see how like my kind of perception of that reality at that moment was triggering how I was reacting to that occasion. So when I was able to like sit back and go, okay, so where's this coming from? Okay, is this real? Is this really my reality? Is this my truth? Or is this just a reaction to an experience, multiple experiences I've had, and this becomes like how I define myself in that moment? So I thought that was quite a good lesson to relearn. And so, I mean, I guess the point of all of that is that I was able to step out of the old way of thinking just by having some awareness around the old way of being, if that makes sense. And in that moment, I was actually to step out and go, hey, well, we got heaps of time. Let's go and have fun. And that was it. It was left there in the backyard, gone. And I guess what I'm saying is that sometimes our definitions of our previous experiences, our history, can create a perception of what reality means to us, right? So, you know, I always draw on the classic example that, you know, me and you, Ben, can be looking at the same thing. I'm going to make it mean something. You're going to make it mean something else. You know, we're not probably going to make it mean the same thing based on our own belief patterns, our own thoughts, feelings, emotions, experiences, history, and whatever, you know, whatever you want to base it in. So to me, it's almost like, you know, walk around with these pair of glasses. Everyone's walking around with their version of reality based on what they've learned. But does it mean it's the truth? Well, I guess that's the question. So I thought that was quite an interesting experience I had. And if you've got anything to add to that, mate, be good to hear.
Yeah, a few things, I suppose. Like ultimately, these things are put in place as a safety mechanism because you're feeling traumatized at a time in the past. So therefore, you kind of put a little wall around it because if you felt all of it all in one moment, it would be too much for you at that time, or you're too young and you don't even know how to process it, you know, because it's foreign to your experience and you're just learning what emotions are or these feelings are, etc. And so that starts to inform our reality, you know, and in an ideal world, once the trauma is past, we start to come back into the moment and unpack all of those things as they occurred, and we're able to move on clearly. But when you're a child, without the information, without the knowledge, and without the understanding or support, that's almost impossible. And this is where we come to therapy later in our lives, and we start to go back into the stories, not to re-traumatize ourselves or relive them or specifically have any attachment to, but to put them in a healthier relationship with ourselves. so that we're less bound by the story and more able to be present. Like you said, it's about coming into the here and the now, and that's again like with facilitating workshops and all that kind of stuff. I very much just do basic broad outline when I'm doing stuff, and allow the details to fill themselves in as they go, because I'm present to what is, you know, rather than trying to force, I need to know this now or whatever. It's being present to, oh, okay, this is now. So what does that look like, and what do I need to do to stay present continually in the moment? So yeah, and we don't know what anybody else is going through in our lives. No matter how close, I've been pretty sure we said this before, but you can be around someone 24 hours a day and will never have the same experience as them, because their reality is informed by all the experience that got them there up to that point. So as much as you can be as deep and as intimate with somebody in your life, you will never have the same experience. You know, everything is informed by your past experience, and everything is it is blinkered, and that's why I meant like it's a safety mechanism. It's blinkering you because to save you from going into overwhelm, you know, rather than leave you kind of less catatonic because you're trying to process an emotion. It's like putting like, I can deal with this amount at this time, and that's okay. And then you can go, all right, that's enough of that, and move on, and then sort of unpack it another day. So this is how we work as sort of practitioners, and what we think healing looks like, because that's our experience of it, is to be vigilant with your stories and your things, and surrounding yourself with people that can call you out, because we don't always know what we don't know, you know, and it's that having someone who gets you in your story, and when you're around others that are on a similar path to wanting to know these things and heal to become better people, we can be called out by those that love us, coming from love, that's like, hey, you're running on autopilot here, rather than being present, you're just running on a story, right? So it sounds like a great experience to be able to witness it and choose something different.
Yeah, totally, man. And I totally agree. Like, I'm very fortunate, right, to have a wonderful wife who follows, you know, her own path and walks her journey, and, you know, has awareness in her life, and, you know, keeps me accountable, and we keep each other accountable. And it's not always rosy. We don't always keep each other accountable. Sometimes we blame each other. And, you know, it's just the shit that couples go through. But the most of the time we can kind of like do that. And it's important to, like you're saying, having people. And that's what I kind of call real mates, right? They're your real friends that just don't take your shit. And they're your real friends that don't have a go at you, right? But like you say, they come from a place of love, and it's a place of love. It's kind of like, I guess, what some people might call a tough love. My version of the tough love is, you know, I love you, but I'm not going to enable this behavior because I know it's not your truth. So I'm going to just call you out, but not from a place of putting you down, making you wrong, all that sort of stuff, but from a place of power, so you don't lose your power, right? So it's always keeping that person empowered. And I think even as a practitioner, that's kind of what we do, especially when I'm doing the coaching one-on-one, stuff like that. It's not about me taking their power away or trying to fix them. It's about keeping them in their power by showing them these things. And, you know, we always talk about awareness a lot on this podcast, and for me, it's fundamental in how we take the first step. Once we have awareness, then we have awareness of how we breathe, how we move, how we respond, and all that sort of stuff. Apart from, if we don't have awareness, then we're just kind of constantly reacting. And I'm always just reacting to the stimulus. And that stimulus can be anything that's coming at us, and it's all information. And how do we process, integrate, and then spit it back out? And more times than not, we're not even aware that we've actually just processed something and spat it back out, because it's just such an automatic reaction based on everything that we've kind of learned from, you know, being young kids, or, accidents or injuries or trauma or, whatever thoughts, feelings, beliefs, dysfunctions, patterns, all this sort of stuff that we know we go on about on this show. So it's really good to have that and to have that as a first step. And for a lot of you, it may be like you might be saying, well, how do I do that? How do I even get to this point? How do I get to the point where you're at? And it's not even about that, right? Like, we don't sit here and talk about our experience to show you how good we are. This is just our journey over the last 20 plus years, right? And for me, I'm only just really starting to get a lot, like embody a lot of the stuff that I talk about. And it takes time. It's like anything. It just takes will. It takes discipline. It takes your will to flex that muscle, to do the work, to be aware. And once you wake up, you cannot go back to sleep. It's that simple. You can't go back to sleep once you've woken up. You can try, but it's going to be like, even when you try to sleep after you've woken up, you're going to get up not feeling too great. And that's essentially how you will live your life if you choose to go back to sleep. Being awake is not the easy path, but it's the only path I choose to live and the only path I choose to follow. So what are simple things that you guys can do? Well, I mean, you just start to notice your patterns and your triggers. And when you notice it, you just acknowledge it in the moment. And that's it. You don't make yourself right. You don't make yourself wrong. It's not good or bad. It's just is. It's just part of your makeup, and that's okay. It's all it is. It doesn't matter. And then you just move on. Okay, fuck, I'm acting like this. It's because of this. All right, what's the main emotion? Oh, fuck all this. All right, cool. All right, does it define me? Well, that's up to you. I'd like to say no, it doesn't define you, right? Because only you have the power to define yourself. And then you just move on. And the more times you start to catch yourself doing that stuff, the less hold, the less power, the less grab it will have on you. It slowly starts to have less of an impact of how you move in your day-to-day life. And that only is just small steps, It's only little tiny steps, and you may catch yourself once in a day. You may start only like once every couple of days. And that's what I mean. It really doesn't matter. It's just starting the process, and just when you start, you just continue. And then you just be aware. And if you're going to have a hissy fit and like chuck a tanty and just when you want to be a sook and all that sort of stuff, well, then just do it. Get over yourself and then just move on.
And we all fuck up, at the end of the day. Like it's okay. It's what you do with the fuck up is becomes your responsibility as a conscious adult. It's like cleaning up your stuff, fixing up whatever you need to, being humble enough to like apologize or go back and fix up whatever needs to be done. So that these are just sort of the things that taking consciousness into any situation is the result, and yeah, it's not about being perfect. It's about just doing it, and we if you get into the neuroscience of it, it's like we have these neural patterns where your brain starts to fire a certain kind of way. So you could be hardwired, actually, like in reality, hardwired to a certain belief pattern, or constantly going down the same old path, because that's how your brain is actually wired to think is normal, and it may not be. And so it's about, it's like, what is it, 21 days to form a habit or whatever it is, and true or not, it doesn't really matter. That's 21 days is what it takes to change neural pathways, so, and breaking a habit is harder than forming one, but you can start to put into place little actions and these little things that start to, like meditating every day, or just like taking a breath, taking 5 minutes to be with self, to check in what's actually going on for you and all that kind of stuff. So it becomes the gradual process of being aware and doing the work as it comes, as opposed to letting it all build up, explode, and go, oh, I need to go do some therapy, or I need to go do this thing, I need to go do that, because I've got a backlog. And about the continual maintenance of what are you doing today to further the bigger picture of you being a more present human being. So these are the sorts of things that the more you can kind of catch yourself, and again, get out of the autopilot, because this is the well-worn path and it's easy because I know it and I know what the outcome's going to be. It's about being, well, what is what's in front of me right now.
Yeah, mate, I love that bit you talk about the hard wiring because it's so true, right? Because we are wired based on our belief patterns. It's so true how that happens. It's almost like when the body has an injury and the brain will create a new pattern to compensate for that injury to keep you moving. It's the same with our emotional body. The brain will, neurology, science. It's kind of, the evidence is, the research is there. I mean, to us it's obvious, but it's actually there. I kind of relate. I use the analogy of like especially with IT people, like, when I say software, we just want to upgrade your software so your hardware is working like, as well as it could be. And that's essentially what we do in healing, right? In the work that we do, we're just kind of rewiring the software, upgrading the software, right? So the hardware is functioning at its full capacity. And that's really all you need to do. Is the more times you become aware, the more times you start to rewire that software, because you're kind of essentially changing the structure, right? You're changing the structure of your thought and your beliefs and the way you are. And that's that wiring. So, there's no point just trying to do symptom-based Band-Aid solutions. We're addressing the structure at the core level, which is the wiring. And, that's where a lot of the power and that's where a lot of the work starts.
Because ultimately you're going to have all kinds of chemical reactions going off in your body that are trying to keep you in that comfort zone. It's like your dopamine, serotonin, all that kind of things are going to get triggered off because you do it the same way. The outcome, it's going to be like that. So you get the pleasure centers in the brain or whatever, kind of syncing up and going, well, this is good, but doesn't necessarily mean it is good. It's we want to get into that uncomfortable spot of this is the untrodden path, and getting okay with being uncomfortable. That's a biggie, because again, once you can hardwire that into your system, that means I'm not saying seek it out, but it's about like, if it comes up, how do I react in this situation? And so, they're great sort of things to put yourselves in those uncomfortable spots. And that's something I've definitely tried to do. And we've talked about travel and things like that are great for putting you in those places of, whatever you think is normal may not be.
Well, depends on whose glasses you're wearing, right? Because in that person's life, that could be their reality, right? So, sometimes we just got to take those glasses off and maybe see things for what they really are and not what we think or perceive they are, right? And this is what I was saying, our definition, our reality is kind of like based on our definition of our own perception of life. They're the goggles that I'm talking about. So it's, starting to, strip your goggles off and have a look at the world or look at yourself for the truth of who you are, and not so much of who you think you may be, right? Or how the world may be, or what that person may be thinking, or what that situation may mean, or that experience holds for you, right? I mean, so many different possibilities. And I think, if I would finish off on one thing, I think a lot of us live our lives in assumption. We kind of assume so many things without any kind of like evidence to back it up, because our evidence is kind of like based in our experience, which we catalog in our subconscious, right?
And there is no answer at the end of the day. Like, what's right for you is not right for somebody else, and so this kind of right and wrong is kind of a subjective thing, and that like there are higher truths. Yes, I believe that, but it's very subjective down to the reality of the person and what's going on and all this kind of stuff. So don't ever think that you have to perpetuate someone else's story as being your own. This is the courage to be you. This is what it takes to live your dream, not somebody else's, and that's where the love for life comes, that you're living your highest dream or truth or whatever that looks like, because you can create anything you want in the world. It really doesn't matter. you just got to be committed to doing it, you know, and getting in those uncomfortable that not everyone's going to support you, not everyone's going to like it, not everyone's going to go, yeah, go you, this is great. But it's going to be, it's going to push away some people that you thought were really close, including family members and all this kind of stuff. So, but it's having that courage to go, well, no, this is what's important to me, you know, and that's it, and start to own that and walk your path within that reality.
Well said, mate. I think that's a great point to finish on what you said. You can create anything you want. You know, we have the power to create anything we want in our lives. And we want to create essentially what we love in our lives, you know? Because we spend a lot of time creating things we don't like because we still have the power to create. Whether it's coming from a place of power or not powerful, you're still creating, right, at the end of the day. So making a powerful, conscious choice to create what you love is powerful.
And anyone that says they have the answer, steer away from them.
Walk away.
Yeah, it's often my reality. It's like, if someone says they know, no. There is no knowing, you know. It's like maybe they know their world and that they may have insight that you can take something away from, but yeah, if they're that sort of rigid in thinking that they have it together, I guarantee that it's not there. You know, it's only.
And just like this, yeah. Sorry, mate. Go on.
It's just coming from the humbleness of going, I don't know. You know, I know a bit, but I don't know it all. You know, nobody.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just going to say, just as there's no knowing the answer, there's no fixing as well. There's nothing to fix at the end of the day, right? Because we are essentially perfect the way we are. And there's nothing to fix. And I know I hear a lot of people saying, oh, I need to fix this before I do that. And it's like, mate, you are perfect the way you are. And all your irregularities, all your imperfections, all your perfections, your entire self, that's who you are. It's not so much you need to fix anything. It's just, again, it's just changing the structure of your, you know, how you kind of navigate, operate. But anyway, that's it. I think, yeah.
Just quick.
I think.
I do want to say that maybe there's things you want to change, but
yes,
that's different, you know. So maybe you want to change unhealthy patterns or stuff like that, but yeah, everything is fine as it is. Yeah.
Can I just say right now, me interrupting you is I'm getting caught up in my anxiety, right? Because I'm like, oh, I've got to go because I've got a client. So I just want to acknowledge that. So
yeah, I was aware. So yeah, well, this is a good time to wrap it up. But yeah, all good, all good.
Well, it's such a good topic. This is such a good topic that I want to keep talking more about because it's really good. It's good fodder.
Yeah. Well, we can pick up it again another time. All good, mate. Take care of yourself. Good luck with your doings and beings and things. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time. And leave comments, questions, whatever. Reach out if you need to. And see you next week.
Yeah, stay safe. Have a wonderful week. Stay in your hearts and create what you love. See you guys next week.
Bye.